all the officials, the members of the media, and the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago who have joined in on television and on the radio stations to participate in this second public hearing of the Public Administration and Appropriations Committee. This committee has a mandate to consider and report to the House on A, the budgetary expenditure of government agencies to ensure that expenditure is embarked upon in accordance with parliamentary approval. B, the budgetary expenditure of government agencies as it occurs, and keep Parliament informed to how the budget allocation is being implemented. And C, the administration of government agencies to determine hindrances to their efficiency and to make recommendations to the government for improvement of public administration. The purpose of this second public hearing of the 11th Parliament is to examine the 2016 expenditure of 4 entities: the Industrial Court, the Tax Appeal Board, the Environmental Commission, and the Integrity Commission under the subhead 09 Development Program, Consolidated Fund. The committee is therefore desirous of hearing from the accounting officers of the 4 departments to discover the challenges being faced and determine possible solutions to these challenges. The role of the committee is to assist the departments to achieve efficient delivery of services while ensuring that expenditure is embarked upon in accordance with parliamentary approval. Of course, this meeting is being held in public, and there would be a delayed broadcast on the Parliament's channel, Channel 11, Radio 105.5 FM, and the Parliament's YouTube channel, ParlView. The first entity, therefore, that we are going to begin our conversation with is the Industrial Court. And I welcome the representatives, the registrar and his team, to this meeting. I would therefore invite the registrar to introduce himself and the members of his team. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. As registrar, my name is Noel Innes. To my extreme left is the court administrator, Yolande Robinson. Next to me is the assistant registrar, Kathy Ann Alexander Fraser. To my right is Mr. Roger Belcon, who is the information technology specialist. To his right is our auditor, one. Her name is Ms. Hetty Burke. Behind me is the corporate communications officer, Ms. Evine Lawrence. And next to her, on her right, is our accounting executive one, Ms. Lydia Glasgow.
Might I ask Ms. Glasgow if she could shift, because the committee can't see you behind Mr. Belcon. So maybe if you can shift to the yes, thank you very much. Okay, and then therefore may I ask the members of the committee to kindly introduce themselves, starting with my extreme left.
Alison Bash, member.
Maxi Coffee, member.
Wade Mark, member.
Member.
And I am Bridget Anizet George, chairman, and the committee is being ably assisted by Ms. Kiba Jacob, who is the secretary, and the assistant secretary, Ms. Shireen Samuel. So maybe the committee has received your submissions, and maybe I can lead off the discussion with asking the registrar to make an opening statement to the committee, sort of giving a context about what you all do, what your overall challenges are.
Thank you, Chairman. The Industrial Court, well, the mandate of the Industrial Court is the stabilization, improvement, and promotion of industrial relations in Trinidad and Tobago. It is a superior court of record. It deals with the hearing and determining of trade disputes. Trade disputes are disputes between the employer and the worker. The union represents the workers in court. The industrial court is a specialist court. It comprises of judges from various disciplines, persons who are experienced in industrial relations, persons who are economists, persons who are accountants, and persons, of course, who are attorneys at law. The support staff of the industrial court are public officers, and the public officers are charged with the responsibility of dealing with the development program. Before you today are the senior public officers. The challenges for us in terms of the development program, and we've broken it down into three for you, which is computerization, improvement works, and Tobago Court, is really funding overall, but let us start with the computerization. Computerization, it took a little while for us to actually get moving with that particular project. I think in my submissions, I indicated that presentations had to be made. Presentations, as at today's date, were made, and we are now to get written proposals in terms of cost of how much it will cost us to go forward. So we wait to see what is going to take place there. I think in terms of the funds, we should have sufficient. We will look to see the time period in which they're going to be able to do the upgrade of the website. With regard to the improvement works, which is the reconfiguration of the registry, that project is on target. The NIPDEC, which is the state agency dealing with that particular project, they are waiting, I think it is just for board approval before we just move ahead, and that should be executed sometime in the month of May. The Tobago Court, which is a project that is quite a large project, we have realized that the funding that we were given is completely insufficient for us to be able to proceed at this juncture in terms of moving forward. Our estimated, or our rough estimated cost is 11 million or 11 million plus. The amount that we were allocated is 600,000. In our request for releases last year, we did ask for 4.9 million, but all that we received was 600,000. We thought we could have at least started the process, but we have been told that that is insufficient to be able to engage a lead architect to handle this particular project. So what we have done is we have requested the Ministry of Planning and Development to take over that particular project, or at least let the government take over the project if possible. That is our main challenge at the moment.
Thank you very much, Registrar. And I just maybe would like to start off from a point you'd made with respect to the computerization. And in your submission, and I think this may have come in sometime after, where you gave details of estimates of the development program under the computerization. Could you tell us what is the scope of this project and the life of this project?
In terms of the computerization, and I think one of the things I mentioned in computerization is that it deals with different aspects. So for the upgrade of the website, that will probably finish within a 4-month period. The computerization project itself will probably continue because there will be other things that we will deal with. The actual scope in terms of what we need to deal with is really making it more functional, We need to make sure that we can manipulate the data and manipulate in a good way in terms of being able to input information. Right now, our website is too static, and therefore we cannot, at this point in time, input data that would be, we think, of great assistance to the public out there. And what we've realized, at least in terms of persons looking at the website for the court list, we've realized that persons look at it with a certain amount of regularity. So there's other things that we need to put on the website. The communications officer, she has a number of ideas which she has already discussed with the persons who have indicated an interest in terms of being able to provide us with an upgraded website. So in terms of lifespan, I don't expect the project to take long once it gets started. But that aspect of the project doesn't mean that the computerization wouldn't continue for another year, but with something else.
But so would I be correct in understanding that the main aspect of the computerization is over, and therefore these are, say, upgrade works that would come from time to time?
Not quite. Let me go back a bit in the past. The computerization project dealt with a number of things. So it first dealt with providing judges with computers. That was early days. Then it started to the next stage was cabling of the whole building in terms of making sure that we could get internet and all of those things. Then we moved to another stage where we were providing the courtrooms with the relevant court reporting technology, which is for us called the FDR, for the record. So we provided all of the courtrooms with that particular technology. So each year in our particular proposed method of moving forward, we have different things. Like 2 years ago, I think we dealt with the kiosk and what we call an electronic signage, which is in the court. And I'm proud to say that it is the only court so far that has that particular, those particular display monitors. So different things are done, but under the computerization project. So an upgrade of the website is one aspect.
And that's precisely why I asked the question, because I understand from what all you've said is something ongoing. And therefore my concern was I had looked at the call circular from the Ministry of Finance dated March 2015 for financial year 2016. And I had looked at one for the financial year 2015. And I think the call circular is out for 2017.
Yes.
And I have observed in all of them, there was this particular statement: criteria for exclusion of projects or programs from the PSIP. And the very first one is annual, stroke, legacy, long-standing projects, multi-year programs and projects for which there are no discernible end dates and which are deemed to be annual. And therefore my question was whether you would describe your computerization program as an annual project with no end date and sort of multi-year, and therefore if it would not fall into this description.
I would agree.
It would. And therefore, if it did, I would conclude that it's most probably what we are doing here, as far as your computerization program may be at variance with the call circular.
Sorry. I'm sorry. Yes, it may be Yes. Sorry. It may be at variance in terms of not having what they considered a project life in terms of one project life and finishing. We have looked at our computerization under that particular title as one for the computerization of the industrial court. And everything that we considered an aspect that would add to the technology of the court, we have put under computerization, and though it's done annually, we consider that a PSIP project. And we submit our requests every year to the Ministry of Finance and Planning under that basis.
Well, then may I suggest, though, that maybe as registrar, you do look at this particular provision,
Yes, Chair.
which is a stipulation and which defines what is a PSIP, what qualifies as a PSIP project, and maybe it may call for a reconsideration by the industrial court of where the upgrading of its computerization project over time should come from. Okay, so at this stage, I would
Yes, Chairman.
really to allow members, and therefore I will call on member Mark.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And let me also welcome Mr. Ennis and the team from the Industrial Court. I know that the call and cry for a court in Tobago, an industrial court, or a branch of the industrial court, has been a long-standing matter for the workers who are located and who are based in Tobago, so they don't have to travel to Trinidad to adjudicate or have their matters adjudicated upon by the court. I wanted to ask a few questions surrounding that matter. First of all, the $11 million estimated for the construction of this court and the allocation of $600,000. Would you want to share with us, first of all, the initial estimated cost of this project, and has it shifted over the period of years? And maybe you can tell us how long has the industrial court been attempting to commence this project, and how much it began at for us to arrive at 11 million today? That's the first question I'd like you to raise and to clarify with us.
Member, might I just suggest, because the question had a number of sub-questions,
Okay.
maybe we should allow the registrar the opportunity to answer. You will be permitted to proceed.
Thank you. Let me start. The court in Tobago, that project was one which was on the books since 2003, 2004. It's on the books. And the difficulty was to identify a building. When we got a building, sometime in, I think it was 2005, the persons who were the owners decided that the state agency required too many approvals, and therefore they then rented out to another private agency. So we went back on the hunt to look for a building. We actually identified a building, I think it is either in 2014, I think it was in 2014, and the building is Sandy Hall. We got, I think it is an allocation of probably about 400 or 500,000 in 2015. Now that was an allocation to do X things with the court. We actually utilized the funds to do a demolition of certain things in Sandy Hall. That was the internal partitions. For the 2015-2016, our request was 4.9 million. because we now needed to do a number of things with the building. So outfitting it, there's some internal construction, painting, you needed to make sure electricity, air conditioning, a number of things. So at that time, we had estimated that that cost of that project should be about $4.9 million. A more recent estimate showed that, no, that's going to come up to about $11 million. So it was a question really of assessing it at a particular point in time. And our most recent assessment of what needs to be done, it came up to that particular figure. So, and that's where we are at the moment.
So are we saying that in the not too distant future, given the rate and pace at which the goalpost is being shifted in terms of costs, this project, if we are not careful, in the next year or two, if it is not constructed, can shoot up to $20, $25 million. So it seems to me that something is wrong with this whole exercise, and you may need to really go back to the drawing board so we can really budget properly. Because I can't understand. We will start off with a couple $100,000 in terms of repairs, and then we got a new building, and we went to $4 to $5 million, and then a couple years later, it has gone to 11. So something appears to be a bit strange in this one. I'm not accusing anyone of anything, but something is wrong. And it seems to me that you have also recognized that it is very difficult for you to continue along this line. So you have now given up and said the state must now take charge and responsibility for the implementation of this project for the accommodation of an industrial court. Could you share with this committee what is the estimated time frame for the industrial court to commence operations in Tobago, given the fact that you have now passed on this project to the Ministry of Planning and Development?
Well, first of all, we haven't given up. We have actually recommended to the Ministry of Planning that it is either that they increase the allocation to us or that the state takes it over. Now, because the capital expenditure is so high, it to me seems wise, and for our team, seems wise that you have a state agency perhaps manage a project of that particular size. We can't now say when the project would be completed because, first of all, we need to have the allocation, which we don't have. If indeed, and we need to meet with Ministry of Planning, if indeed Ministry of Planning agrees that a state agency should actually take over, then at that juncture, we can say we would want the court to be operational by early next year. But of course, it depends on what they allocate and how they actually mobilize their resources. So
that has to do with what is happening to workers in Tobago who would need to access the courts. What kind of mechanisms do you have in place in Tobago for workers to access the industrial court, and whether you are given consideration to the establishment of some form of temporary accommodation whilst we look for this long-term permanent solution?
yeah, right. Thank you. This is exactly why we want to have a court in Tobago because there is the difficulty of many of them having to come to Trinidad to access justice in the industrial court, either in Port of Spain or in San Fernando. What we do and what we have done for a number of years is during the period that the Supreme Court is on vacation, we utilize the Supreme Court to hear a number of matters, and we've done that for a number of years. So that is how we try and treat with a number of the Tobago matters. Sometimes we might have as many as 30 matters being heard during the particular period that the Supreme Court is on vacation, which is the August period. But that does not bar persons coming to the court all during the year, but in Trinidad. And of course, for the obvious reason of expense, inconvenience, we would like to have a permanent place in Tobago to be able to treat and deal with all of the matters for persons who reside in Tobago.
Member Ma? Okay, Member Ramki soon.
My question is in relation to the submission for number 8, which relates to the projects for the financial year 2016. And I'm seeing a cost given on Part F, the total approved cost of projects for the improvement works to be $461,000. And I'm not exactly sure what that is related to, because in the ensemble, there's talks about the Tobago office, and there's also talks about the website, but we didn't speak about that figure prior, so if you could shed some light on that, please. Thank you.
Certainly. There are 3 projects, one being the upgrade of the website, one being Tobago Court, and the other one, which falls under the improvement works, is the reconfiguration of the registry. The registry, court registry in Port of Spain. We have indicated that that registry needed to be expanded to be able to accommodate staff and also accommodate the number of files that are in the particular registry. We have already engaged a state agency to deal with that particular project. The cost of that project is $461,000, and that's why we put that particular figure down there. So that is for the improvement works registry. And I should just indicate that when we say a registry, because I know many ministries have registries, it is not your usual registry. This is a court registry. So matters are filed at court, and it deals with everything in terms of a matter going to court. So from filing to disposition, all those files are held in the registry. It's not a registry that deals with HR files or your office management files. It only deals with court files.
Okay, just for clarification, so we're having this amount for the improvement works, and then you have another amount for the website, and your budget is already that. That's your total budget there. So what's going to happen to the Tobago office? No funds allocated to that?
No. There's different allocations, okay? There are different allocations. So, may I? Yeah. So you have a $500,000 allocation for computerization. That's a website. You have a $500,000 allocation for improvement works, which is the registry, which is the $461,000 will come out of that. And then you have a $600,000 allocation for Tobago, all separate and apart. So altogether, you have 1 point. Okay.
Okay, Member Coffey.
We first deals with item 4. Now, when I look at the allocations under computerization, the amount released is $120,000. The amount spent is nil. Under improvement works, the allocation is $500,000. The amount released is $200,000. The amount spent is nil. Under the accommodation, the amount released is $600,000. The expenditure is nil. Now we're in the 7th month of the year. And is there a capacity problem? I understand the problem with the the Tobago office, but what I'm seeing here is that no money has been spent, although you already have funds released to you. So what's behind that?
Yes. So, and we have to look at it under each heading. Under the computerization, it actually does deal with a certain amount of capacity, the ability of us to be able to mobilize and engage certain persons to deal with that particular project. Because your communications officer and your IT person, who are the ones who are lead persons on that project, have a number of other things that they also deal with. And so we have to sometimes stop doing what the core duties to be able to actually now concentrate on these other projects, which they had to do over the last 2 weeks. Okay? The improvement works, that is actually ready to move ahead. We were ready, court administrator is the lead person for that. She was actually ready dealing with the technical people from NIPDEC in terms of the drawings, getting everything ready, all the measurements. So we are nearly ready to go with that, though it is the 7th month. And of course, we've already indicated to you the hindrance with Tobago, because Tobago, we don't have sufficient funds to be able to engage an architect.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. Let me get to my second question on the accommodation for the Tobago office. Now, you said this project dates back to 2003? Okay. Now, given that we are now operating in a different economic environment to back then, and even when the allocations would have been made, is there any consideration being given to working with the Supreme Court for shared accommodation rather than going for the $11 million construction? Given that you said there are 30 cases, I take it that's in the court vacation, but given the number of cases that you would expect to have annually, is there any consideration being given to sharing accommodation in light of the economic situation?
The short answer would be no. There's no consideration to sharing accommodation. The fact that we mentioned 30 cases in one particular year doesn't mean that there are not more cases. We also believe that once the court is operating, you will see a greater utilization of the particular court, because we have the research, we have library, and of course, once persons know that a court is there, that they would use it. The working together or in partnership with the Supreme Court would have some challenges. That would have to be a policy decision. We, at this juncture, have not given that any sort of consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Innes. In response to Member Cuffey's first question, you did indicate that you have some certain capacity challenges with respect to implementation. Now, in particular, in terms of the upgrade of the website, do you currently, well, once the upgrade is completed, do you currently have on your establishment an officer who will be responsible for maintaining that website, or do you intend to at least put in some sort of structure and engage an additional person perhaps as the website maintainer?
All right, thank you. We do not have someone who we could say we could dedicate to the website. We do have persons who actually, even currently, do a certain amount of work in terms of trying to put information or make recommendations. And those persons would be, again, your communications officer, your library people, the librarians. They are also very active in trying to make sure that the website is one that is appealing. The thought of bringing on someone in this current economic time, we would not, suggest that we would do that or engage someone like a webmaster. And I'm not sure, my discussions with IT is that we're not sure that that would be practical for the amount of things that we would have to do on our website to engage someone full-time to do it. So it would be a question of different persons actually manipulating the data to put it on and make sure that persons are able to access it and see certain things that we hope are appealing to them.
Mr. Innes, I just wanted to follow up on that, but the upgrade alone is $500,000.
The allocation is
Yeah. And that's the allocation for this upgrade, yes? And according to it, may continue in another fiscal year then?
the computerization project may continue, not the upgrade. Sorry.
I may not have been clear. I'm just talking about the upgrade, this particular upgrade with respect to your website. And I'm just following on the questions that Member Olivier asked. You've already been released $120,000. The allocation that you asked for or that you obtained was $500,000. So that in terms of, you just said that you didn't think it may have been practical to hire full-time somebody like a webmaster. But I was just following up in terms of the question of the cost for this one-off upgrade, which very likely may be functional for a certain period of time, and then you'll have to do another upgrade. And at $500,000, I wondered whether any sort of comparison would have been done with respect to employing full-time a webmaster and what that would cost on an annual basis, and doing some sort of comparative analysis with what going out to tender to some third-party provider, which is going to be for a limited duration of time.
Thank you, Chairman. No consideration was given in terms of engaging someone full-time. The comparative analysis, we didn't give that a particular thought. I suppose if indeed the submissions by the persons who we have contacted to provide us with the particular upgrade, I suppose if indeed that is extremely high, you may then look at engaging someone full-time. But that was not a consideration. It is something that for us we felt would be completed during this particular financial year. In terms of having to go back and upgrade again, we are not looking at doing something like that. That's why we said we wanted to be able to have the ability to I don't want to say manipulate, but let me use the particular word, manipulate the information so that we could input and do the changes for ourselves. So it's not something that we are looking at in terms of having someone full-time in terms of doing that. We will actually have our relevant officers inputting the information as they see it necessary.
Senator Bashk?
Through you, Madam Chair. As you said, under improvement works, the allocation is $500,000, the amount released $200,000. You stated also that NIPDEC is the state agency handling the project. My question to you is, what is the role of the accounting officer in NIPDEC's tendering process?
The role of the accounting officer in NIPDEC's tendering process is really, let me just start from a different angle. NIPDEC will actually tender. They will indicate to us what the cost is in terms of person who is their successful tenderer. It will be for the accounting officer at the industrial court now to say, yes, they agree to pay this amount or not. And that would be the role that the accounting officer will have in that particular process.
I'll allow Member Bash to follow up on her question, and then you, Member Mark.
Auditor's role in monitoring this project.
The internal auditor will generally, in terms of, and we're talking about in terms of NIPDEC's actual function here. So they will only be involved in this process when we come to invoices being submitted by NIPDEC, and also in terms of any documentation that might flow from NIPDEC in relation to the contract requirements and any sort of other approvals that needed to be submitted. They will not have input until actual invoices start flowing in from from NIPDEC, the state agency.
Are there any controls implemented to ensure that the projects are completed within budget and within schedule?
Our controls are really from now, in terms of that particular project, you will have your court administrator who will monitor that particular project. She will know what the actual cost is. She will know what the particular terms and conditions and requirements are. And she would be the one to make sure that there is compliance with the relevant documentation and to ensure that what they're asking for is what should be actually paid. And of course, the accounting process would kick in once the actual invoices reach the accounts department.
In your procurement process, do you have, or should I recast and ask, what are the guidelines and regulations that are employed by the industrial court to prevent the occurrence of fraud in this procurement exercise?
Yes, Hewlett Robinson, Court Administrator. Hi. What we do, we follow the Central Tenders Board regulations in terms of procurement, so that in terms of big projects, we will go to, well, liaise with Central Tenders Board, or go to them and follow the procedure there to do our projects. But this is a small project. So as we have handed it over to NIPDEC, what I'll be doing is like monitoring and controlling. So I will know what kind of materials they're going to be using, whether we'll be following the rules in terms of materials they say they're going to use, and that kind of thing, before we sign off on any of the invoices that they may submit.
But what mechanisms and measures would you employ to prevent any occurrences that may take place of a fraudulent nature? Do you have some system in place that would guide you, or mechanisms or measures to prevent occurrences of fraudulent activities in that area?
In what sense? What do you mean?
No, what I'm saying is that if you are engaged in procurement and you have projects that you are undertaking, you have to be monitoring, you have to be measuring, and you have to be ensuring that everything is being done within time and brought in within budget. But there are always possibilities for occurrences of fraud. So I'm asking, what mechanisms and measures do you have in place to detect occurrences of that nature at the level of the industrial court? That's the point I'm
In terms of this project we're speaking about, in terms of the improvement works? Or projects on the whole? Oh, well, we follow the Central Tenders Board rules in terms of procurement, so that you will put things in place in terms of how you will look at things. For small items, for 3 quotes, you will get the 3 quotes, you will analyze it, you will do the right things, you will suggest which is the best quote you will take, and you'll move from there. You will look at what you receive in terms of if they say they're going to supply with X, they supply us with X, and that kind of thing in order to ensure that we're not being defrauded or anything like that. But in terms of persons hiking up their prices, we wouldn't be able to monitor that per se unless we compare it with other prices.
Madam Chair, if I may ask Mr. Ennis, in the areas that you have mentioned as your main challenges, inclusive of the Tobago court computerization, I think you mentioned another one, what recommendations would you want to proffer to this committee and through this committee, its chairman, for assisting and helping the industrial court in the way you do things in the future and in trying to improve the level of efficiency, effectiveness, and economy in your operations as a court? Would you want to proffer possible recommendations that the committee could consider when it is submitting its report to the Parliament?
Thank you. I would say that one of the things we think should always be considered is the amount of money that we may request in our estimates. Our estimates are done in April of a particular year for the financial year starting October of that same year, going on to the next year. Many times what happens is that you do have certain changes that could take place from April to October. And therefore, I think it might be prudent for the Ministry of Finance at least to find out if indeed there is any sort of variation to the amounts that we have put down in the month of April when they're allocating the month of October. And I think we should give consideration to that because you do have sometimes some variations, and that you run into the difficulty where you're saying, but you asked for this, and now when we come to the relevant financial year, the amount has changed. So that would be my particular recommendation, really, for this committee to put in its report.
Member Ramkisoon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In relation to the response given by the court administrator in relation to procurement, just for clarification, I would like to know if you have a process which is an open bidding process or a selective bidding process where you have a sense of value for money in relation to your projects that you are undertaking.
Speaking about any type of project, or just the 3 projects we are speaking about
well,
now?
I know you have you listed that you have a procurement regulation and guidelines.
Yes,
right?
Central
That's from your
Tenders Board.
submission.
Yeah.
So just guide us on what you have, and thank you.
Or whether it's an open bidding or selective, it depends on the nature of the project. If the project is one that you have to look for selective bidding, then you look for the contractors or suppliers who actually supply what you require. And then from there, you will do the normal process. You will send out to the parties to respond, to send in their quotations or whatever, and then you will get a team to evaluate it and do a report based on evaluation and make recommendations, and then you move forward in terms of the funding.
So you have a department that deals with this?
Well, we
particularly?
have a small, all ministries now, depending on the amounts, you have several committees, well, several committees that you put together. So for some very small amounts, it's just the person actually looking at it with the three codes. In terms of between $1 million, you have a small committee that comes together where you have a tenders box. So you'll ask people to submit their tenders, to put it in the tenders box, and then you will go through a process of the evaluation and go through the normal central tenders board process.
Is that department able to capture value for money?
Yes, yes, definitely.
And in relation to that, what is the frequency that you receive your internal audit reports?
That the auditor better able to answer. Dennis?
The internal audit reports are actually submitted to the accounting officer on a monthly basis. So we receive it, and if they indicate their findings, not just with projects, but other things, and any areas of concern.
So, Ms. Ennis, your last internal audit report would have been when?
The last internal report would have been, we are in April, would have been March.
And I just wanted to ask something in terms of your internal policies. You said that the internal audit is not only informed by the control of accounts, but best practices and so on, and they're exposed to training. What is the staffing component of your internal audit department?
The staffing, it comprises of an auditor one and at this juncture, 2 auditing assistants. The work of the internal audit is not just for the industrial court, I might say, it is also for 4 other sub-accounting units: Public Service Appeal Board, Environmental Commission, Equal Opportunities Tribunal, and the Tax Appeal Board. We have already had discussions with the Control of Accounts, and we've made a submission or a recommendation to the Public Management Consulting Division for 2 more positions, one being an auditor 2 and the other one being an auditing assistant, so that they can better be able to cover the number of agencies and do the detailed kind of examination that we would like them to do.
Just for further clarification, Mr. Innes, in terms of, in your submission, you said that the auditors were exposed to seminars and training, and I wanted to know how often this was done, and secondly, when was the last training or seminar conducted for the auditors?
The auditors and all of them, they will go not necessarily to the same training. They will be actually selected for various training. We normally have about, I would say, 2 to 3 sets of training per year. The last one was in February this year.
And we're going to allow one more question, and this is from Member Coffey.
Thank you. Now, you have already identified several capacity constraints in the organization in terms of the execution of your project. In terms of the computerization of the industrial court, how did you arrive at the scope of the project? Is it just an internal wish list, or was there any outside analysis done to arrive at the scope of the project and what's needed by the industrial code?
Yes, thank you. It is generally done internally, and what will normally happen is we will do a sort of IT sort of plan. And the IT section will look to see what things they think should be done over a year or 2 year period. And it would have been based on the recommendations of IT together with discussing it with the communications department.
Okay, so I would like to thank the representatives of the Industrial Court, Ms. Glasgow, Ms. Lawrence, Ms. Burke, Mr. Belcon, Ms. Alexander Fraser, Ms. Robinson, and the Registrar, Mr. Innes, for coming and assisting this committee. You all would at this time be discharged. We may have some further questions, Registrar, which the committee would send and ask you to respond in writing. But we thank you all for your assistance and for a very engaging conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
We now have before us the representatives of the Tax Appeal Board, and I wish to welcome them on behalf of the committee. I would ask the Registrar of the Tax Appeal Board to introduce his members of staff who have accompanied him.
Good afternoon to you, my lady. My name is Dushan Basad Maraj. I'm the Registrar of the Tax Appeal Board. To my immediate right, I have Ms. Gabriel Davis, who is our librarian. And to my immediate left, I have Mr. K. Joseph, who is our IT specialist.
Thank you, Mr. Registrar. And as you know, the committee is here to examine your allocation and expenditure under the development program, Consolidated Fund. And I will invite you at this stage to make some brief opening remarks about the Tax Appeal Board.
Madam Chair, thank you very much. The Tax Appeal Board is a superior court of record. It was created in the year 1966 to adjudicate on appeals from assessments from the Board of Inland Revenue on a host and variety of matters, including the Income Tax Act, Chapter 7501, the Corporation Tax Act, 7502, the Petroleum Taxes Act, Chapter 7504, Stamp Duty Act, Chapter 7601, the Land and Building Tax, 7604, Customs Act, Chapter 7801, and more importantly, the Value Added Tax that came into being in 1989. Also, we involved in the Anti-Dumping and Countervailing Duties Act, 1992, and the Financial Institutions Act. We sit as a court. We're based at Frederick Street. We have a chairman. The name of the chairman is the Honorable Mr. Anthony Gafour. And in addition to the chairman, we have other members of the court who serve on a contractual basis. The chairman is appointed by the Judicial and Legal Service. I think Commission. Yes, thank you, and so too is the registrar. We deal with appeals basically in terms of the petroleum and in terms of petroleum matters, in terms of the energy sector. Of course, we have the Individual Income Tax Act and so on, but in terms of the appeals, we deal with appeals as a court. We sit and we hear appeals. Unless I get me a further assistance, that's the briefest, unless you want me to elaborate on anything further.
Thank you, Mr. Registrar. I just wanted you to get an idea of your stakeholders, because when I looked at your DP program is basically the upgrade of the library and your UPS, installation of your UPS. So that in terms of the upgrade of the library, I'm trying to get an idea of the size then of your external stakeholders.
In terms of our stakeholders, well, first of all, let me say, Madam Chair, is that the Tax Appeal Board Library has been dormant since February 2006. And due to the efforts of Ms. Davis and Mr. Joseph and their staff as well too, and our chairman, we have resuscitated the library, and the library is now on board. It was because of the moving of the Tax Appeal Board from, first of all, George Street, and then the Winshaw building, and then the Sterling Brothers building on Richmond Street. We're now on Frederick Street, number 27 Frederick Street, in the heart of the city. So we have some issues there in terms of not only accommodation, but in terms of for the attorneys to reach to the Tax Appeal Board. Our stakeholders are mainly those who, at least not from the Board of Inland Revenue side, but in terms of the attorneys themselves, they come from most of the firms. Fitzwilliam, Stone, Morgan, who else again? Fitzwilliam, Stone, Morgan. We have Mr. Daly. We have right now we have a matter which is going on involving 2 senior counsel.
Sorry, Mr. Registrar, I might have miscommunicated. I really didn't want the identity. I'm trying to get in terms of numbers and types. So if you have attorneys,
oh, sorry.
if you have firms, I'm trying to get an idea of the size of your external stakeholders. And again, I'll tell you why. Just as you said, it's almost 10 years you haven't had a library. So it means that the court existed, and I guess the services of the library were provided to external stakeholders in some way.
We're dormant, but we tried in our own way.
And what I'm concerned is, having regard to the sort of different times the national economy has found itself in, whether these services could not be provided as a subset of another legal library, or in conjunction, let's say, with NALIS. So I'm trying, that's where I'm leading.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Because the Tax Appeal Board is a Superior Court of Record, we are a specialist library. And in terms of matters being done there, our act came from the Supreme Court of Canada. We also deal with our books and cases are basically from New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, India, and other parts of the Commonwealth. But in terms of numbers, I would say maybe it depends, because in terms of lay litigants who have access to our court, I would say maybe in terms like each year, I would say maybe we have about 400 matters which is filed, about 400.
It would be applicants,
yeah.
yes, but not necessarily using your library.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Yes.
And the other thing that I wanted to be assured of is that in any event, your jurisprudence comes from Commonwealth,
correct,
other Commonwealth countries.
That is so, my lady.
Okay. And therefore, again, goes back to my point, a Superior Court of Record with, yes, a specialist jurisdiction.
That is correct.
Yes?
That's correct.
And I ask again, having regard to all the challenges, whether it may not make sense in your library service being provided by, let's say, the Supreme Court Library, or, say, in conjunction with NALIS.
Well, my lady, I agree with you, but we tried, but they don't have that repository of books that we need so very often in terms of I think the Whitecroft on Whiteman on taxation, in terms of those specialist petroleum, oil and gas books that we have, in terms of the value-added tax books and so on that come from South Africa. It was a specialist library. So because we were dormant for so long and so on, we have to resuscitate that library from that aspect. And it has taken us quite some while because of the various moves and transitions that we have had to go through in that span. We have been at the Frederick Street building. I wouldn't say it is the best accommodation that we have, but I would say that it is the best that can be devised in the circumstances.
Might I just ask one thing? Your Frederick Street location, is that a government-owned building? Is it
No.
vested in, is rented?
It's rented.
So
yes.
again, it's subject to some
Next move.
tenure?
It is possible.
Yes. And I just wanted to ask, in terms of your library staff, how large is your library staff?
Well, we have Ms. Davis here, and she has 2 assistants.
They are not librarians, they're just like library assistants?
Library assistants.
Okay. All right, I'll just invite some questions. Member Coffey?
Hi, welcome,
Good-
Mr.
Good day,
Prasad.
sir.
I want to get back to the library issue. Now, I see one of the things you're looking at paying for is access to Westlaw and a legal database. Now, I know across the state sector, NALIS has MOUs with all ministries, all agencies. Do you have a...
We have a contract with Knowledge right now.
Okay.
In terms of the LexisNexis system.
Okay. And the librarian is also a NALIS?
Yes.
Right. Now, so the integrated library system, the purchase of the software, was it done in conjunction with NALIS, or you've gone off on your own?
I think what happened in this particular case, no, we never do anything on our own. And what happened is that we had a meeting with NALIS, and as a result, what we did is that we came up with this proposal here, the integrated library system. If that sounds...
To you, Madam Chair. You can get economies from
Economies of
sharing
scale.
licenses with NALIS and the other libraries. I know there are similar arrangements with UE and libraries all across the state sector. So I'm trying to get to what extent you are using these opportunities, or is it that you have gone off and...
No, what has happened is that because the fact that we were dormant for so long, we actually, Mr. Joseph and I, before Ms. Davis came on, we went to NALIS for the services of a librarian. And after we met with the lady, the person, about 3 hours. And after that, he said, no, we can't have a librarian. So what we did, we got an OJT, an on-the-job training, and I trained myself in the Menisa system to document each book and whatever and so on. So as of now, the library is operational. But in terms of the synergies that is possible, it can be looked at. I think I take your question, sir, in terms of the other organizations, in terms of value for money.
Member Oliver?
Thank you.
Good day.
I'd certainly like to compliment you for getting a library operational despite all the challenges that you obviously have had over the years. Now, I know that you seem to be interested in implementing a tax judgment database. You indicated that you recently completed a free trial of a particular software.
Yes.
So my question is, well, have you also evaluated other similar type software, or is this particular brand the only software of its type to provide the service?
Is this the CISA? The CISA.
Yes.
This was one which was recommended to us through NALIS. And as a result of that, we are using it in tandem with them. So we see how it works in terms of the use of the judgment and in terms of the output of the court.
A follow-up. Okay, well, so since it was recommended by NALIS, well, then I assume that, well, that the economies of scale that
Economies of
Coffey
scale.
spoke about would be applied here.
Yes,
So you
yes,
are
madam.
getting- Okay.
Member Bashk?
My question to you is, who monitors and the expenditure for this project?
Sorry. Good day. In terms of the tax appeal board, in terms of the monitoring of the expenditure, we are a sub-accounting unit of the industrial court. As a result of that, we are also subject to the external audit. What we do in terms of our evaluation is that we get synergies from other organizations who are able to, in terms of IT, better able to understand and equip themselves with that repository of knowledge that they'll be able to evaluate. I don't know if that answers your question.
It deals specifically with the project on hand, which is the update of the library.
The library itself, is something of the tax appeal board library, is a peculiar library. Peculiar in the sense that the users of it are mostly the attorneys, the lay litigants, myself, the members, the chairman. So what we are trying to do is trying to get the streams of revenue flowing in terms of the adjudication of matters for the tax appeal board. Because what lawyers go on, they go on what is called, what cases which are decided before, and then the doctrine of precedent. So if it's decided before, they're able to better grasp the issue. For example, we're doing an issue in terms of methanol and the basket of prices, How best we are able to measure the feedstock into what those plants down in Point Lisas and value the price of natural gas at that point in time, in that particular year. So I would say that the library is not only critical, it is crucial and inimical to the operation of the board, the tax appeal board, that's it.
But Registrar, you said precedent. There is no binding precedent that obtains in the tax appeal board.
Of course, my lady. What happens is that, like any other court, we are susceptible to appeal. An appeal goes to the Court of Appeal and then to the Privy Council. Yeah.
Okay, Member Mark?
Good day, sir.
Good day, sir.
Good day, sir.
We talk about lay appellants as one of your external stakeholders.
Yes, sir.
Just for my own edification, taxpayers who pay personal income tax, if they feel that they have been unfairly dealt with by the Board of Inland Revenue, would they be able to come to the Tax Appeal Board for justice? Ordinary taxpayers of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago? Or is this court only set up to deal with corporate clients?
No, the Act, sir.
The Act.
You know, the Act stipulates that we deal with matters as it pertains not only to income tax, because most of the lay litigants come in terms of income tax. We hardly get any lay litigants in terms of corporation tax. And you would not believe, sir, of the after coming through the 8 years from the Board of Inland Revenue, these litigants, they stand a very good chance. Most of them, I would say, from my sitting in the court, they have experienced a high measure of success. I, in terms of appeals, in the corporations would be the oil and gas companies, the methanol companies, the other corporations, the corporate entities and so on.
Yeah, but are you saying, Mr. Prasad
Prasad.
Maharaj, that when it comes to income tax, the taxpayers who pay income tax, they have some relief through the Board of Inland Revenue, or can they come to the Tax Appeal Board if they feel that they have been aggrieved or they have some challenges that they would like to address that through the Tax Appeal Board? Can ordinary income taxpayers of Trinidad and Tobago come to the Tax Appeal Board for justice? That is what I'm trying to
Yes, sir. 1/4 of your salary is taxed. That is
Yeah.
25%.
Yes.
In addition to that, you have VAT, value-added tax. So it is 25 plus 12.
Yes.
So what is your disposable income? Your disposable income, so in terms of the person who comes there, we look at that. What is their disposable income? Because the threshold, as it is $72,000 a person, a year, a fiscal year. But the first port of call is the Board of Inland Revenue. After 2 years, it is possible to come to the tax appeal board if no reply has been given. No reply has been given.
And would they need to have a lawyer, or can they come on their own strength? Or do they need to have an attorney at law to appear before the Tax Appeal Board?
I would seriously advise any person to have an attorney at law. I would seriously advise any person, but each individual can come on their own. And these persons are very well versed in issues of accountancy, in issues of structuring of the balance sheet, in what allowances that the Board of Inland Revenue refused. You know, like if your son is going to university and it was refused by the Board of Inland Revenue, how best you come to the Tax Appeal Board. What I can say is that it is a pity that it takes so long at the Board of Inland Revenue to decide these cases, because some of the times when persons come to the Tax Appeal Board, the external auditor is there, the auditor is not there, has moved on, that sort of thing. So if there's any way to transform the Board of Inland Revenue, I mean, not really to transform it, but to allay the wishes, especially in terms of lay litigants. I think I agree with you on that point.
Right, just so that we can give other members. I just want to ask one question before I invite Member Ramti soon. In terms of the number of litigants you see per year, could you give us a slight percentage of how many will be the layman? And I know we say ordinary, but I understand Member Mark saying somebody who qualifies for tax. What percentage of the litigants you see in a year would be the individual? I think that might be the better word.
Okay. My lady, I don't have the figures at hand, but I would say off the cuff, maybe about 10%.
About 10%.
About
Fine.
10%.
Member June.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon to the panel. I just seeking some clarification on the submission that was submitted. And if you can turn with me to page 14 of 14 in your submission. And I saw you sent an update, and I just want some guidance on where I can find the information if this is incorrect, what I'm going to ask of you, okay? So I'm looking at the library project before we move to the UPS. And there's approved cost project of $1,210,000. Of that, you have a breakdown of your expenditure, your outstanding commitments, the percentage of your project completed, which I don't know how you got that percentage, and then the initial cost. Now, of that, the breakdown, there's an unaccounted $878,996. For that, I would like to know what's or where is that money allocated to?
Sorry, I'm sorry. On signing a contract, when one doesn't pay the entire fee, one pays the initial fee, initial down payment, which may be about 30% in certain cases. And then there's a mobilization fee, and then there's a completion fee. So that would account for most of the money not being spent at this point in time.
So the $878,996 is allocated to what phase of the project right now?
A stage, well, we have the breakdown here.
This is dealing with the library project.
The library.
Yes.
Library, right, yeah. In terms of each of the items here, save and except the physical upgrade. No, we have another upgrade to the library because we wanted to add a window to the library. We were based on 2 floors on Frederick Street, and the security for the tax appeal board is not really safe in terms of Ms. Davis there. And we wanted to add a part in terms of a window. But the second floor, which is the upper floor, is where the members are. So what I'm saying, my lady, is that the building was configured for a mall. Sorry. This is
Registrar, would you have your submission with you? It is page 14 of your submission. All right.
Well, this was. Okay, this would have been some time ago and so on. Yeah, and this details each of the items here. The collection development program, upgrade to library, physical upgrade, and so on. But if you look at the spreadsheet, it gives a more accurate depiction of what is going on in each of the items there.
All right, just to turn to the next page on your submission, which is page 1 on the UPS project. A written submission. How are the funds for the subhead being utilized? There is a missing 10%. Would you please like to advise us? Yes, there's 10% for the provision of services by a company.
On this document here? This document here?
Yes, the written one.
What page?
Page 1 of the UPS section, the supply and installation of the uninterrupted power supply. So right after the page we were looking at prior is the next page.
It's installation, configuration, implementation.
Of
Supply of UPS?
yes.
That's right. Okay, yes.
The first point, how are the funds utilized? There's an initial outlay of 10%. There's a 50% towards the installation of cables, breakers, configuration, electrical panels, and so forth. And then the 30% for your termination services or training training of your staff. I'm saying that adds to 90%.
That is a typographical error. It should be 50. 50-50. It should be 50-50.
Okay, what is written here? It's 10, 50, and 30, which adds up to 90. So there's a 10% missing. So if it's a typographical error, it can't be 50.
This should be 40 instead of 40. I'm sorry, it should have been 50, 40, and 10. I'm advise my IT person. Sorry about that.
It will be 10, 50, and 40%?
10, 50, and 50, yes.
All right, might I just ask, though, in the 40%, therefore I'm correcting it to be, the 40% will be providing termination services and training for tax appeal board staff. Maybe I would like if you could just assist us in understanding how that is tied up to installation of an uninterrupted power supply.
May I?
Yes, you may, Mr. Joseph.
The UPS is it's one of those, it's part of the latest state-of-the-art technology, and it requires the installation of some software on the system. And in order to use it, to be utilized, there's some training that is involved in that aspect. And the training is not just to maintain the system, but also to ensure that we don't have breakdowns later on. So the amount is towards that.
What would be termination services?
The termination services in this case will be initially the completion of the project. Yeah, so what happens is that at the end of the project, it will be signed off. But because of the nature of the project, we have a maintenance feature where, maintenance contract, where every 6 months period, 6-month period, the contracted person will come into us. And at that point, again, we go through the system. So the termination services is not just simply at the end of the project, but it continues for the period of the maintenance. So that is part of the termination services.
Right, let me ask something. You already have UPS on the first floor.
Yes, that's
Yes?
true.
On the court, where we have 2 floors. We have 2 floors, 2 floors.
UPS system is already installed and operational in the first floor. Would I be correct in saying that?
Yeah,
Who are the occupiers of your second floor?
okay, the second floor, we have a library. And then we have the executive members, which will be the chairman, the honorable members of the panel who sit on the court.
Are your members full-time?
Yes, yes.
All your members are full-time?
Yes.
All right, Member Mark?
I just have 2 questions, Madam Chair. The upgrade, Mr. Prasad Maraj, of your library, we have a figure of $1.2 million. Is that right? Yes, that is correct. Is that a moving target, or is that a final figure for the overall upgrade of the library? I know that you will need to provide your library with more up-to-date material every year, because obviously we live in a dynamic environment. But in terms of a final figure for the upgrading after 9 years, would you be able to tell this committee whether this figure is a moving figure and it can go up beyond 1.2, or whether this is the final figure for the overall upgrade of the library, pending, for instance, recurrent expenditure costs to bring new books into the library that is required because of the specialist nature of the court?
Sir, with all due respect, I think you should visit the library. If you visit the library, you're able to see what is in motion in the library, because that whole floor was part. Mr. Joseph and I picked up each box, took each book, put it on the shelf, the All England law reports, the South African tax cases, the New Zealand law reports, the Australian law reports. It was a task by itself. And to see where it was to now, I would say I'm advised by my librarian that it is a fixed figure. In other words, the other issues in terms of the books would be on a recurrent. But we have not been able, because of the fact that some of the books come from South Africa, New Zealand, and whatever, and because it has been dormant for 10 years, we the books are in transit, in transit.
I'll talk to my chairman about possibly being an on-site visit to your library. May I ask, you do have an internal audit unit within your organization's operations. I would like to ask whether the internal audit unit produced a report at the end of the first quarter of fiscal 2016, and if it's possible, you can provide this committee with some highlights of the findings of that report, of your internal audit report.
Yes, sir. Our internal audit, well, for the past, since 2009, we are sub-accounting unit of the Industrial Court. Our chairman, as my lady would know, had an issue with that. But be that as it may, everything that we do is subject to the Industrial Court. Our salaries, we have to go through the Industrial Court. So the Industrial Court, while we think ourselves as independent, we want to believe ourselves are independent. We want to strive to be independent. But the fact is we are not really independent. But the fact is we are a government-based institution, and therefore the issue of accountability arises. Accountability. And that is central to my tenure as registrar of the Tax Appeal Board so far, until somebody else is there. My lady. So I will undertake to submit through the chair, honorable chair and so on, the reports that are submitted to us via the Industrial Court.
Member Coffey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just had two questions for Mr. Joseph, the IT specialist. How much of the project 005, the supply and installation of the UPS, has been completed? That's the first question. And the second question is, how was this project scoped and implemented? Did you, for example, look at the requirements of the judiciary, the industrial court, iGovTT? What informed your procurement and the needs that you identified here for the UPS and the IT system?
Thank you for your question, sir. First of all, we already have a UPS system for the first floor, which was done previously. And in getting research for that, we had consulted with the Supreme Court, Industrial Court as well, and a couple of other agencies before making a decision. So the decision for this one now was simply just to follow on, because what happened is that the company that did it for us, they were excellent. Their contractual time with us was excellent, and their feedback was good. For instance, we can call them at 8 in the morning, and by 10, they're usually there. So it was just a matter of logics to continue with them. And so far, we have found them to be excellent in the way they have done their job.
Especially as the current electricity goes on Frederick Street very often. So what happens is that we have a courtroom where an FTR system is installed for the records. So we have like a visual depiction of what is taking place in the court. Mr. Joseph set that up. We set it up a few years ago, and we have to maintain that as well too. That is probably under recurrent as well too. So, but the fact is that Mr. Watson, who did the Mr. Edward Watson. Sorry, I don't want to call names. Yes.
So
Yes.
let me just get it clear. Is it that you all just re-engage your previous supplier, or given that it's a new project, you had a procurement process?
No, we had a request for proposal, an evaluation done, which was done, and then as a result, a letter of award. Because that is how we do every single project here, Ms. Davis and Mr. Joseph. Because what we want to know is that, I think what you all would be interested in, my ladies and sirs, is that what is it that you are getting, or is it that the country is getting value for money? Value for money. In terms of all those issues that we have raised and so on. Now, doing a DP is not really an easy thing, simply because that Ms. Davis and Mr. Joseph and Ms. Headley, we all of us, we have to sit in the court sometimes, and so it's really a matter of balancing our time. The fact is, right now we have the draft estimate which is taking place. I don't know whether we'll be able to submit it in time, but the fact about it is that we are trying our best, because it is a limited stuff. It's a small stuff. You would not believe, sir, what effort Ms. Davis and especially Mr. Joseph that they put into moving. Mr. Joseph lifted up books and boxes by himself. By himself. Of course, we could have paid somebody.
Mr. Rajeshram, if I may interrupt, we certainly not at all questioning the dedication of the staff of the Tax Appeal Board. And if that impression were given, I must apologize.
No, I'm not.
Okay?
Right,
So that if you would permit me, I'd just like to ask Ms. Ramkisoon. Member Ramkisoon has a question for you.
Mr. Maraj, I understand what your team is trying to do and what you have been doing. However, from your submission, when the question was posed, how much money has been transferred to date and what sum has been spent, the answer was always none or nil. And I know you have been speaking about in-house methods of trying to computerize your court. How then are we doing that with no transferred money or none spent for the financial? Okay, for example, for your UPS project on page, oh my God, there's no page number. Okay, the installation, configuration, and implementation of document management system, right? And number 4 was asked how much money have been transferred to date, and of that sum, how much has been spent. The answer from the Tax Appeal Board was none. But yet we have a project here, a new project under that same section to realize and fully computerize your court system with a cost of approximately $300,000. So I'm trying to get a link. And then another example is like the library, how much money has been transferred to date for the library, and again, the answer is nil. So I'm just trying to understand.
What I would ask you to do is, I'm sorry about that, it's to disregard this document and concentrate more on, disregard this document. Just concentrate on our achievement report. Achievement report.
Is it, Mr. Rajeshra, that they are time specific? So is your achievement report a later in time, showing differences that may have occurred between your first document and the achievement report?
I think that is what I was trying to say.
Yes,
Okay, let's look at the achievement reports. And if you see in your physical percentages, planned and actual, you have percentages, for example, we just spoke about, which was the UPS project, you have 0% actual. Is that correct?
The plan is on this project number 005. Supply and installation of a UPS.
Correct, 005.
Yeah. Allocation 170. Releases were blank. Plan expenditure 170. Actual expenditure 170. Projected expenditure 170. Submission of tenders.
So is it that this project has not started yet?
It is about to start we We did we did the initial meeting and system inspection. That is applied in terms of verifying all circuits and wires and panels required from the UPS system.
All right, I think what might help is if you can resubmit to the committee your actual figures and what you have done and planned, so that way I can understand what it is that you're trying to say. Because if you're saying that we have no money to spend or have not transferred any of the funds, then I can understand you not having the infrastructure to do the work that you want to do. So that's why I'm asking it.
Oh, well,
Mr. Prasad Maraj, maybe just to assist, let me see if I understand it. For that UPS project in fiscal year 2016, you plan to complete it
within
entirely.
entirely.
As of to date, you have not started it, save and except for getting the proposals for the review by an evaluation committee.
Yes, we did a review by the evaluation
Right.
committee.
So you haven't spent any money as yet, but you
No.
expect within fiscal year 2016 to complete the project.
Because the evaluation.
Yes, that's what the
that
100
correct.
is.
That's correct.
And the actual is, you haven't done anything as yet in terms of physically implementing the program. And that's why you have a zero there.
One of the issues at the tax appeal board.
No, if you could just
Yes,
answer.
yes, that's correct.
Okay. Well, we'll ask you some other questions on the library. We'll most probably send those questions to you in writing. I just want to ask two other questions, and this is in terms of, again, the UPS. And in terms of your, under the question 8, provide the following details for the project under this subhead. This is for 2016 fiscal year. You said the initial cost of the project was $170,000. Yes?
Yeah, that's correct.
The revised cost of the project is $89,899.75. Yet, when we ask for variations to the scope of work, none. So I just wanted you to maybe clarify for the committee what was the cause of that variance?
Thank you. After we did the evaluation, we went again with this very same company, but we had already done the evaluation. I'm sorry, Member Coffey, if I didn't explain that too well. And the company was able to negotiate a cost for us that was a lot lower than initially we were thinking about expending, which of course was to our advantage. So I must say in this point in time that we were able to spend a lot less than we initially targeted. And as I said again, the company was able to do that. They were able to locate for us. And the equipment itself is even more updated than the previous one we had. And so I think it's to the advantage of the Tax Appeal Board and of course the government that a significant amount of savings will be had in this particular project.
I asked the question because I wanted to know whether this being a new project, you had engaged a procurement process.
Yes, we did. Yes, sir. Yes, we did.
Okay, and just ask the registrar one final question in the interest of time. In terms of, if you had any recommendations that you would like to advance which would improve the operations of the Tax Appeal Board as it relates to the items under our examination, what would these be?
Well, lady, there is only one issue that comes to mind, and I really don't know how to say this. I don't know how best to put it forward or to proffer it. But if we were based in a different location, a safer location rather than Frederick Street, because what we do is that in the evening, we leave in the evening, I leave in the night, whatever, and we walk along Queen Street and so on. And our park is in the Anglican church there, So we have a walk along Queen Street. We don't mind. The issue is in terms of safety. And because we're based on Frederick Street, we have a number of instances of persons coming into the tax appeal board, and they create some issues that we have to call in some other agencies.
Would those issues relate to the library and the UPS?
No, those issues relate
No,
to security.
so the question,
security.
the security.
Security issues.
Yeah, but the question I asked was specific to the matters under our examination, which primarily is the library, the installation of your UPS system, and your document tracking system.
No, I would at this point in time, I would say that we once we are able to complete the projects, and we'll try within the we have to do it within the fiscal year. We will manage somehow and so on. But I do invite, not only take the opportunity to invite the member and yourself, but as well as the whole team really, and so on, to visit the tax appeal board and to see the tax appeal board and be aware of the tax appeal board, and as Senator Mark said, to see what goes on there, visit our chairman, see the members and so on, I'm sure.
I want to thank you and your team, Ms. Davis and Mr. Joseph, for coming and assisting us.
I didn't ask Mr. Davis.
Excuse me?
Nothing.
I would like to thank you all for coming and advancing this very interesting conversation. There are a few questions I believe the committee may still want to ask of you, which we will send in writing, and we would ask you kindly to respond, giving you what we would think is a reasonable time to respond. So you are now relieved. We'd like to thank you very much all for coming and assisting us. And we would give consideration to your invitation. Thank you very much. Good afternoon to the representatives of the Environmental Commission. And again, I apologize for the delay. May I ask you, Registrar, to introduce your team to the members of the committee?
Chairman and members of the committee, Mr. Troy Roberts, IT consultant at the Environmental Commission, Mr. Christian Dalrymple, accounting assistant acting, and Ms. Stacey Allen, administrative officer 2 acting. And I am Giselle Thomas Roberts, the registrar.
So I want to thank you all for coming. And in the interest of time, Registrar, I will invite you to give some short opening remarks about the Environmental Commission so that you could give us some context. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, by way of background, the Environmental Commission was established by Section 81(1) of the Environmental Management Act, Chapter 3505, and it is a superior court of record established in the year 2000. The Commission has jurisdiction as per Section 81(5) to hear appeals, applications, administrative civil assessments from the Environmental Management Authority, and in accordance with Section 69(1), direct private party actions. The judicial arm of the Commission is headed by a chairman, ably assisted by a deputy chairman and 4 other members. The Commission has been at its current premises of EF Telepol Building, St. Vincent Street, Port of Spain, for the past 16 years since our inception. And like many other public service organizations, we are bursting at our seams. It is within this context, Madam Chair, that we requested $1 million from the government to aid in our relocation program, and that is also in keeping with the objectives of our information strategic plan.
Thank you very much, Registrar. And I will invite questions from the committee. I will first ask Member Ramkisoon and then Member Mark. Member Ramkisoon.
Good afternoon to the panel.
Good afternoon.
I am looking at your submission, which you sent on March 9, 2016, which is in line with our committee's deadline. So thank you for keeping the deadline. In relation to number 4, which states how much money has been transferred to date and the sum in which is spent, your answer or response was none. Is that accurate? And
Sorry, ma'am.
Oh, sorry. And if such, how does that affect your new projects, such as the electronic data management system, where you have allocated $425,000, but I'm seeing no money has been spent on that? So thank you.
Very accurate to date, member. We have not transferred any funds from those voters yet. May I ask my IT representative to speak to the other aspects of the project?
Hello, good afternoon. What specifically did you, what information specifically were you seeking?
I wanted to know what percentage, if you had started it, and you're saying you didn't start any project.
This year, we have not. We have not started.
So you have no funds. So all the projects that you have in your proposal or your submission is something that you would like to start?
We would like to start soon, very soon.
Are there any ongoing projects presently under the Environmental Commission? Ongoing projects?
In terms of IT or generally?
General.
No projects, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Mark?
Address certain items of expenditure. Would you or would the Environmental Commission establish the appropriate mechanisms in order to monitor the expenditure? In this instance, let's say on the item, under subhead 09, project electronic document management system, you said that no funds have been transferred thus far. When funds are transferred to this project before the end of fiscal 2016, could you share with this committee what kind of mechanisms would the Environmental Commission develop in order to monitor expenditure under this subhead?
Member, the Industrial Court is the accounting unit for the Environmental Commission. We are the sub-accounting unit, and as such, in terms of expenditure, when money is transferred and when projects are being done, we follow astutely the financial regulations. We deal directly with the auditor who has hawk eyes with respect to our projects, etc. I don't know whether that would have satisfied you or whether there's anything else you would want me to explain.
That mechanism in terms of the Industrial Court having direct responsibility for these matters have been going on for how many years now?
Since the inception. I've been at the Commission for 4 years, so since the Commission has been there. But prior to the Industrial Court, I think we were below the Ministry of Public Utilities because we need an entity to take our notes to Cabinet. We cannot take our notes to Cabinet. So Public Utilities would have done that for us. The Industrial Court now functions as the accounting unit. So nothing passes without their permission, without they having a say as to what we do in terms of spending government funds.
But is it a relationship that you are comfortable with as an Environmental Commission, Or is it a matter that the commission has been looking at in an effort to give it more space to address its own requirements?
I have had to manage the relationship between our organization and the industrial court since my sojourn. It has improved. I think none of us is happy being friends with each other, but we have no choice. We would prefer to have our own accounting unit, but we cannot because we are very, very small. Inclusive of the members, it's only 40 of us members, so that we would like to manage our own affairs, but we are small, so therefore that cannot be done. In terms of how it's been done now, as I said, I have managed that relationship, so therefore we have come to a place where we understand each other and where things can go forward without much acrimony or much delay.
Member Coffey.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and welcome, Madam Register. I wanted to ask a question on item 2 and the communications backbone of the Environmental Commission. Probably Mr. Roberts can answer.
Yes,
Is this the government backbone?
No. At present, the Environmental Commission does not have a GovNet kit. In terms of our physical infrastructure connection, it is over fiber provided through Digicel.
Okay, but you understand that it would be cheaper and more cost-effective to get onto the government backbone and utilize the electronic document management system provided for all state agencies?
I haven't solicited quotes to get on the government backbone. At the time, we were just exchanging one internet connection for another internet connection of a similar price. And as well as for the past few years as well, there have been ongoing discussions about moving. So in terms of deploying significant infrastructure on site seemed premature if we were just installing it to pack up and move to another location.
Okay. But since this is a new project, you're thinking about moving, why haven't you considered the cost saving of employing the government backbone rather than another provider?
I don't know the scope of the savings involved with the government backbone. Like I said, we replaced one internet connection provided through TSTT for another one for a similar price. The scope of the savings currently, I believe our monthly internet bill is around 1,200 TT per month. So annual cost of 12,000. I don't know how much the scope of saving with the backbone would be with regards to that if absolute spending per annum is 12,000 TT.
Okay, I would like to ask the registrar what, therefore, having regard to what was just explained about the role of the industrial court accounting unit and you being a sub-accounting unit, what therefore is the role of the registrar as the accounting officer of the Environmental Commission?
My role is similar to that of a permanent secretary. We have the full powers of a permanent secretary. Again, this anomalous situation with respect to the industrial court is something that I met there, and both Mr. Innes and myself, we have been trying for years to rid ourselves of each other. I do have a lot of independence in terms of how government money is spent. It is not that he is a big stick, but they offer guidance as to what procedures and whether things can be done, and I do welcome the guidance from my senior colleague at the industrial court.
You're not as hamstrung as a sub-accounting unit as it may suggest.
Not in that way, Madam Chair. We just don't print our own checks, etc. They print the checks and do all the monitoring, but we are not that hamstrung. It's not that bad, but there are times when the relationship could be acrimonious.
So, so that in terms, their their involvement is just purely advisory and printing the checks, but all the procedures in terms of determining spending and seeing about releases and so on will be done by you
Correct.
as the
Correct, Madam Chair.
accounting officer.
Correct, Madam Chair.
Okay, I just wanted, and I'm sorry, I give, just as I have the attention, I just wanted to ask particularly with respect to responses to the question 8. And this is to provide the following details for the project under the subhead in 2016 financial year. This is the electronic document management system. Okay, and while we see that it appears as if it is a new project, we've seen from the estimates from 2014 to 2016 that this project was listed as a new project since 2014.
That is so because since 2012, we have been knocking at the doors of different administrations wanting to relocate, and that has not yet happened. So that what we do in the event that we relocate during a financial year, we request the funds. Also, there may be aspects of this project that we will commence where we sit right now, Madam Chair.
Okay, so there isn't really any project start date then?
Not for, we don't have any project start dates identified for this fiscal year at this point, no.
Okay. And there has been no work done at all on the project in any of the fiscal years?
Which project are we referring
The
to?
same, there's only one project we're talking about.
Okay.
This is your electronic documentation.
Document management
Yes,
system.
yeah.
Yes, that has been implemented as it stands.
So, well, then I am a bit confused because in your responses, it is still, if it's implemented or it is still an ongoing project,
Sorry.
contract terms not applicable, project start date upon approval, total approved cost of project not applicable, total expenditure to date nil, total outstanding commitments to date nil, project completion date 2 months from the start, so it started and completed?
For that specific project, as most ongoing large-scale or document management projects will proceed in phases. So what was identified for possible attempt in this fiscal year were merely expansion phases upon that one.
All right, so let me just see if I understand. So it's a big project with maybe subsets of the project identified in different fiscal years?
It would be in terms of, as for an electronic document management and content management system is an overarching system that seeks to catalog, manage, and secure and dispense the knowledge-based information within an organization. That often cannot be attempted in one simple stage.
Just ask this, Mr. Roberts. When did it start? The first simple stage? When did
The first simple stage was initiated in 2014.
Okay, good. So and maybe this is to the accounting officer. Again, and you know, we're starting to see a lot of this. I go back to the call circular because you are guided by this too. And I've looked at the call circular for the financial year 2015. I've looked at it for 2016, and it just came out for 2017. I haven't gone back further, but I suspect the statement remains the same. Criteria for exclusion of projects or programs for the PSIP. 1, annual stroke legacy, long-standing projects. Multi-year programs and projects for which there are no discernible end dates and which are deemed to be annual. Would you describe this document management system as being fit in this description?
In terms of the project itself, once the scope is implemented, the project can be considered complete. Any expansions or enhanced capabilities that are desired at a future time would be construed as a new project. So in terms of, say, you were to implement an email system, you set up an email server, you've created the mailboxes,
Yeah.
and you've deployed it.
Yeah, but
And-
Mr. Roberts, I understand that from a technical point of view. What I'm trying to find out, really, from your accounting officer, if that understanding is consistent with this provision of the code circular, or if it is in contradiction. That's really, I'm not looking at the technical project. I'm saying this is a statement in the code circular, and if it is that your description of your project fits this caveat, it may be that this needs to be migrated out of the PSIP.
Madam Chair, you may be very well correct. Hearing you now, it may very well fit into what is there. As I indicated earlier, the project has been ongoing. It may mean that we just did not follow directly what is there, so that it may need to be migrated now, Madam Chair.
Member Mark?
Yes. Yes, thanks, Madam Chair. I just would like to ask the registrar. According to the estimates of the development program for 2016, this same project received approval for $1 million. However, the cost stated in your response is $425,000. Would you like to explain to this committee the reason for the difference in costs?
Member, again, I would speak to us moving, and one of the issues with respect to us moving is that the chairman would want to have 2 courtrooms, and there is going to be an expanded jurisdiction for the Environmental Commission. With all that in mind, the 1 million would have been requested last year. I do not see, if we do not move, that we are going to use that 1 million so that there will be savings for and on behalf of the government in that respect.
Madam Chair, may I also ask the registrar, how is the system, the electronic documents system, how is it expected to improve productivity within the organization?
May I ask could my IT specialist respond to that question on my behalf?
I'm not talking about productivity, I'm talking about staff.
Yes.
Productivity.
Absolutely. The purpose of any electronic document management system, the goal will almost always point to efficiency. So in terms of the electronic document management system, it's a framework for capturing the print documents at the commission and then storing them and delivering them to the users in a very, very timely basis. So what we are trying to get away from is stacks of files on the user's desks, difficulties in locating files, miss files, the ability for many of the members work outside of the office, the chairman and whatnot, they travel. So to be able to gain access to the documents and forms that they need to, it is envisioned at some point that the system itself will be expanded to a full court case management solution, where every single piece of documentation or record keeping with regards to ongoing cases is stored within the system and delivered to users in a timely fashion, and or possibly both internal and external users as required. So in terms of efficiency, we can move away from making a request, a user making a request for a file, someone going to the file room because, as Ms. Roberts mentioned, they're bursting at the seams to the point where storage is extremely tight. And as such, files are just stacked up on top of each other. So retrieving any one particular file is unduly burdensome. So now from their desk within the client with the appropriate security permissions, if they have access to the file, they can pull up any file within seconds. So as such, the ongoing business of the commission becomes improved through improved moving of documents within and without of the commission.
Is this possibly going to lead to a redundancy and maybe redeployment of staff? Because if this is going to improve, as you rightly said, greater levels of efficiency and productivity, would you see arising out of it redundancy? And if that is so, redeployment and not necessarily people being laid off because of this very important and efficient piece of technology that has now been established?
Every single electronic document management system has the potential for improving efficiency and as such can lead to the situation you described. The quantum of such would be determined after the fact. It's kind of difficult to determine before the fact.
Oliver?
Yes, thank you. While we're on the topic of the electronic document management system, I'd like to ask a question about the HR capacity within the commission. I know that a number of the representatives here are in acting positions, and I know that you have an IT consultant. From that title, I assume that you're a person who is hired by the commission and not a permanent part of the commission.
That is correct.
Establishment. So I'm really concerned about, so once if you got the electronic document management system up and running, I mean, do you have the IT personnel within the establishment of the commission that would be able to manage and maintain it, or do you have capacity challenges within the commission?
We do have capacity challenges, member. We are in the process, so we have approached prior to today the PMCD to have our own IT specialists. That is presenting some challenges because we must justify our workload, and that has some challenges. So that we would want to have someone on board permanently, so to speak, but again, it's not within my purview as such. I must get that permission from PMCD and from the cabinet.
Okay, Member Coffey.
Madam Chair, I wanted to get back to the three-quote system. Now, do you have a pre-qualified list, or is it you just arbitrarily choose three persons to send your requests to? The next thing, could we get an idea, maybe you can provide it in writing at another point, of an examination of using the government backbone as against the system that you have now, that you have procured? And in terms of the hardware and the software purchases, you said you use whatever is used by the Office of the Prime Minister, but I'm not sure that is, there are several agreements, software agreements that the government is party to, and licenses are shared around state agencies. So I would like to get some kind of assurance that we are using those for efficiency rather than just, there doesn't seem to be a formal process in terms of accessing the IT services. And just seeing what somebody else is doing does not lead to the best process for getting hardware or software.
I would just answer the first part of your three-part question, if I remember, member. We do not have a pre-qualified list. We seek after persons who are in the business, and we get the 3 codes. That is how it's done. In terms of, I think Mr. Roberts would be able to respond to the software licensing agreement, because I know for a fact that we do subscribe to some of them.
We have solicited and received licenses from iGov with regards to all our Microsoft licenses are now acquired through iGov. We do have an iGov rep, and we do liaise with them constantly. Just yesterday, I spoke with our rep, actually.
Member Bash?
Good afternoon. And you want me to start over? Okay. All right. My question deals with ensuring effective compliance, proper management of resources, and adequate performance. What measures are in place to ensure that there is an effective compliance and proper management of resources? And also, how does the Environmental Commission measure performance?
Would I be able to give a response to that at a later date? Not that I don't know what you're asking, but I want to present the best possible answer to the question. Because I don't know whether you were talking about, because I was just conferring with IT. Are you talking about the financial regulations? What exactly are you asking me?
Registrar, I think
Yes.
in the interest of time,
Yes.
we'd allow you to present your full submission to that question in writing, and we'd ask today's Wednesday if you could do so by Monday, please. Thank you. Member Ramkisoon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is actually very related to Senator Bash's question in relation to the submissions that was presented by the Environmental Commission on numbers 14, 15, and 16. And now that you have shed light on that you have ongoing projects in the system, I would like to know, how do you actually measure the milestones, as I would call it, but you call it phases of this IT project? Because you gave a list here to upgrade the core network switches, to upgrade your firewall. All these things would be phases. Now, I'm not sure what phase have been completed or of what has been submitted in this package was completed to date. But it would be nice to know how you intend to, or how do you measure and evaluate these projects and the value.
With regards to the projects listed, these would not be considered part of one project. As envisioned, they are discrete projects. They fit part of a larger program of the IT strengthening of the organization, but each of them individually would be effectively discrete. For example, the upgrade of the core switches. The existing switches at the Environmental Commission are close to a decade old. And that presents an operational risk in that if they are far out of warranty, and if they were to fail, the network of the Commission would go down. So that is an infrastructural upgrade that has a very, very simple start and end. It's old equipment. It should have been changed years ago. In fact, it was outlined to be changed as part of the IT strategic plan from 2008. And it's 2016, and we're still using the same switches. So for the hardware type components, those are, in fact, everything on the list can be viewed as a discrete project and not part of a phase or anything like that.
Okay, so for the 6 items listed under the upgrade, none of these items were done yet?
No, these are projects that have been identified that could be done within the next fiscal.
All right, and how do you intend to evaluate when you have completed it? How do you measure it?
Well, for the hardware upgrades, that's very, very simple. It's a direct replacement, so once the item has been sourced and deployed in production, it would be considered complete.
So it's an in-kind replacement?
Yes, exactly.
Similar. Okay, so you don't have a department or like an audit section that reviews works that were done and completed and signs off on it. We don't have that external body existing.
Yes, we do, member. Again, the industrial court provides internal auditing, and the Auditor General's department, they would visit and they will do their oversights and their checks as per legislation.
So any of your 40 member staff, they're not involved in that process?
Of auditing?
Well, of reviewing and measuring the value of your project that has been completed and the various stages.
No, member, not that I know of.
All right, and the first part, which was number 14 and 15, where it just states following statutory guidelines and standard financial regulations, you would be giving us exactly what is that you are referring to?
Yes, I would. Yes, I would be doing that. Yes.
I think, Registrar, we will send in writing specific questions for you to address your mind to answer those two items.
Thank you,
And
Chair.
I just wanted, and I think this is the last question, we would deal with everything else in writing. The last question I would have liked to ask is that you had said that in answer to the question, how does the department measure or evaluate the outcome of each project under its remit in light of the stated objectives? And in your response, one of the things you said, paperless environment. And I wanted to ask, how does a paperless environment assist in measuring or evaluating the outcome of each project under your remit?
The paperless environment, I imagine, is one of the stated goals of the Commission from, again, the IT strategic plan from 2008. I don't believe it specifically assists in the measuring of completed projects in and of itself, but is merely an administrative tool for use.
I say thank you, Mr. Roberts. And therefore, I want to thank you, Registrar, and your team, Ms. Allen, Mr. Roberts, and Mr. Dalrymple, for coming and assisting us in understanding how you operate in one aspect of your financial allocation. We would be sending some further questions, which you should get by tomorrow, and we would really like if we can get some responses by Monday. So we thank you very much, and we look forward to continuing the conversation.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, members, for having us.
Pleasant good afternoon to the representatives of the Integrity Commission, and we welcome you to this second public hearing of this committee. May I invite your registrar to introduce the members of our team?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. First, let me introduce myself. I'm Jasmine Pascal, Acting Registrar, Integrity Commission. And I'll have the other officers introduce themselves.
Richard Frederick, Director of Investigations.
Aisha George, Acting Accounting Assistant.
Petal Alexander, Legal Officer.
Mervyn Critchlow, Manager, Corporate Communications.
Natasha Elder Louis, IT Specialist.
Candice Young, Senior Human Resource Analyst.
Andala Ramrup, Legal Officer.
It's late, so we will try and see how quickly we could progress things, but still sticking to the objective. I would therefore ask your acting registrar to make some brief opening comments, which will sort of give some context to the discussion that we're about to embark upon.
Madam Chair and members of the Public Administration and Appropriation Committee, on behalf of the chairman, members, and employees of the Integrity Commission, We thank you for this opportunity to explain the work of the Commission and look forward to your support. The Integrity Commission of Trinidad and Tobago continues to enhance the efficacy of its operations to ensure attainment of the organizational vision of promoting integrity and making Trinidad and Tobago corruption-free. The Integrity in Public Life Act empowers the Commission to have an oversight of rules of the ethics and integrity of public officials who are grouped into two categories: persons in public life and persons exercising public functions. Our objective continues to be threefold: preventing and detecting corruption through the filing of declarations of income, assets, and liabilities, maintaining oversight on persons in public life through the investigation of complaints, winning wider public support through programs of public education. We have a team of employees who are responding admirably to restructuring of our operations, and I'm optimistic as to where that will take us. We have a good mix of people's skills and competencies. I recently assumed duty as Registrar of the Integrity Commission in place of Mr. Martin Farrell, who is now on pre-retirement leave. As Registrar, it is my responsibility to administer the work activities of the organization, serve as Secretary to the Commission, and above all, to offer advice on the formulation of policies to ensure the effective implementation of the decisions of the Integrity Commission. I serve also as the Accounting Officer of the Integrity Commission, as appointed by the Treasury Division, Ministry of Finance, where I ensure compliance to the Exchequer and Audit Act. The Integrity Commission and the Office of the President utilizes the same internal audit unit, which is stationed at the Office of the President. We operate under an umbrella of confidentiality. The records of the Integrity Commission, as they pertain to declarations and investigations, Section 35(1) and 2 of the IPLA, are confidential. These statutory strictures of the Integrity in Public Life Act precludes the commissioners may or any employee from divulging information from these records. I nevertheless take this opportunity to advise this Public Administration and Appropriation Committee that at the Integrity Commission, we are committed to improving the operations of the Commission and are currently engaged in a review of the Integrity in Public Life Act with a view to proposing suitable amendments to existing legislation. These amendments, it is anticipated, will strengthen our compliance and investigation activities. With respect to the reform of the Integrity in Public Life Act, I wish to advise that there is little I can share with this committee, as only last week that members of the Commission completed a review of the voluminous amendments to the draft Act. There is at this time no written document to share with members of this committee. I wish to advise that as soon as the draft is updated, we will be in a position to provide the committee with details on the amendments. With respect to the whistleblower legislation, I wish to advise that the draft whistleblower legislation emanated from the Office of the Attorney General. The policy document was initiated by the Law Reform Commission and the draft bill prepared by the Office of the Attorney General. The Integrity Commission was in no way involved in the preparation of the draft bill. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Registrar. And I want to assure you, I don't think we would really want the details of the draft of the Integrity in Public Life Act. I think it's outside the remit of this committee. But in any event, maybe I could lead off the discussion in asking if you could clearly outline for the committee how you see your role as the accounting officer of the Integrity Commission in terms of its accountability to the Parliament.
Yeah, I see my role as one that is very important, in that with respect to all financial matters pertaining to the Integrity Commission, my duty is of report to the Auditor General, the Ministry of Finance, and all relevant bodies, including that of Parliament, Public Accounts Committee.
Okay, and in terms of any of the financial regulations your role in seeing how that is implemented, reviewed in your commission? How do you see your role as in the responsibility for that?
Well, to ensure that all financial matters are followed with respect to the Exchequer and Audit Act and the financial regulation, to ensure also that there is value for money with respect to any votes under my charge, and to ensure that what money is spent for what it is allocated for.
Floor to other members of the committee. I call on Member Ramkissoon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Pleasant good afternoon to the Integrity Commission.
Thank you.
I would just like to know for clarification on the answer submitted for number 2 on your submission. We know that you have been granted $1 million. And from that, you have made mention of a unit that is not yet operational for the dealing of the whistleblower protection. I would like to know what is the intended cost of this new unit to house the whistleblower protection. Thank you.
I really can't answer that as yet because I believe there will be some consultation going on with the various stakeholders, and that hasn't taken place as yet. So we haven't really looked at cost for that particular unit. No discussions have taken place with that as yet.
Do you foresee that it will be more than the budgeted $1 million?
Maybe more, because let's take for example the law reform, the amendments. Sorry, the amendments of the form of the IPLA. I know there will be costs with respect to, we'll intend to hold public consultation, so that is a cost. If we say look at the whistleblower, in the whistleblower legislation, they speak about a unit that houses a whistleblower, but there's also, in the schedule, identify 16 bodies. I suspect that will form a part. So we haven't had any discussion yet with those bodies and how we will tease out those issues.
Just for clarification and to share with this committee, if you may, have the Integrity Commission ever embarked on any prior projects previous to the whistleblower project?
Let me let my IT.
Not exactly like the whistleblower project, but we had in 2007 embarked on our IT infrastructure, which was a large project in the sense that I think it was over $2 million. I'm not too sure. Accounts could clarify that for me on the costing. And so I say it's not like a unit we were forming. It was just we were implementing a new IT infrastructure, and that detailed we had to purchase over 12 servers and new equipment, so that the cost was, like I said, about $2 million.
Member Mark?
Yes, well, thank you very much, Madam Chair, and may I also welcome members of the Integrity Commission to this meeting. I did hear you say, Registrar, that there was no consultation with the Integrity Commission as it relates to the whistleblower protection legislation. However, there's an allocation on the Head 09 of the development program for $500,000 for the establishment of a unit, I guess whistleblower unit or some reporting unit under your jurisdiction. Considering the lack of general knowledge of the public on matters of the nature that you are going to be embarking upon shortly, once things remain equal, what measures would you be embarking upon as a commission to implement the whole education process so that members of the public would become more familiarized with the Integrity in Public Life Act, as well as this new unit that you will be establishing, given the allocation? What kind of measures do you plan to effect in order to educate the wider public on this matter?
So I'll let my manager, public, at Secretary.
With respect to, first we need to understand what is the legislation all about. What is the whistleblower going to be doing, and what will be the role of the commission? And once we have identified that, then internally we will have to decide how we go forward internally in terms of informing ourselves about how do we implement this whistleblower legislation. Then, of course, one will need to look at the public. You'll need to have some general meetings with the national community. Then we'll have to identify who are the stakeholders, who is this legislation aimed at? Are we looking at individuals who are going to provide us with information? What are the levels of security that will be provided? So it's going to take a gamut of meetings with a number of stakeholders, people who have an interest in being whistleblowers.
Madam Chair, the registrar did say in your opening remarks that one of the objectives or goals of the Integrity Commission is to make Trinidad and Tobago corruption-free. Could you share with this committee what are some of the measures, what are some of the steps, what are some of the initiatives that the Integrity Commission of Trinidad and Tobago plans to embark on to accomplish this objective, this goal of making this society more corruption-free?
Firstly, I'll let you hear from my public education, then investigative going to play a part, and compliance after will educate you. Okay, thank you.
Initially, the commission decided to target the school-age population. And we have been in the schools in the last 4 or 5 years spreading the message and a conversation on do the right thing. And we have been pretty successful in spreading that message among the primary and secondary schools. Last year, we engaged the tertiary level institutions, and we engaged them in having a debate competition where we sought to spread the message of do the right thing on integrity. A couple of weeks ago, we had a consultation next door that brought together all the integrity commissions of the Caribbean. Because the challenge that we have is it's a regional challenge. How can we work together with the other regional integrity commissions in spreading this message of ethics and do the right thing? And that's how those are some of the steps that we have taken in terms of spreading the message. We had a number of other initiatives planned for last year and this year, but because of budgetary constraints, we've had to cut them back. One of the issues while we were doing our projects in the schools, you would recognize that we have issues of student violence, students using the social media, and all the challenges that we have in the schools. We engaged some nonprofit organizations to work with us to do some interventions in the schools, and we've had to put that aside. we've had to put aside quite a number of other initiatives. But once the funding is there, the will is here, and we're sure that we can carry them forward.
Member Coffey? Right.
Yeah. We recognize that in order to achieve this goal or this dream of making Trinidad corruption-free, it ought to be tackled on two fronts: prevention and detection. And as Mr. Krishu just alluded to, the public ed is a means of enhancing the preventative aspect. As a means of improving the detection aspect is why we are now embarking on a whole review of the Integrity in Public Life Act, because we recognize that the investigative capacity, where the laws are concerned, is not as strong as we would like it to be. And we are trying to have this addressed so that it will improve our ability to detect acts of corruption. So I'm saying we are hoping that by addressing these issues, we'll be able to come as close as possible to achieving that dream.
Science, and we hold a number of sensitization programs with the persons in public life, informing them of the requirements under the Act. We also have an open week, which is planned for next month for those persons who have to file their declarations by the 31st of May, 2016.
Member Coffey?
Sorry, the explanation of the registrar in relation to the act and the outreach that you're doing. But, and this is just from my pure ignorance, I do not understand how $500,000 could be allocated to the reform of the Integrity Commission. Because you said you have collected all this information, this feedback. Is it to pay attorneys? I just need to understand that. And then I go to question 1 on the whistleblower. The 500,000 also allocated for the whistleblower, and it said for putting structures and systems in place to house a new unit. Now, if it's simply if it's simply a new unit and the positions, I would think those would be recurrent expenditure and not fall under the PSIP. And I assume that it's going to be housed in the same building. So I want to get an idea of what exactly the 500,000 would involve. And then I go to question 6, when we ask, are there systems in place to ensure effective compliance, proper management of resources, and adequate performance? If yes, provide a detailed description, and you say no. So if there are no system in place to ensure proper management and efficiency, and then I see the vague answers. That's why our question went up.
I know it was a big vague when I made my submission, mainly because we had no information with respect to the whistleblower legislation, because we're now into discussions with AG office, and AG indicated that he's going to share the information with us as soon as he's completed. That's why sometimes I may be vague. And with respect to the reform, only recently last week, the commissioners had completed the amendments, looked at the amendments to the IPLE.
In terms of the commissioners looking at it, I'm trying to understand where the $500,000 cost comes in. Because if it's the commission looking at it, what are we spending the money for?
No. Yeah. Now, the $500,000 is really to hire a legal draftsperson to assist with the amendments and consultation thereafter with different stakeholders, public consultation.
And in terms of I mean, this is the Integrity Commission we're talking about here. They have no effective compliance, proper management of resources, and adequate. I mean, how could you not have any system in place to prevent corruption or waste in the Integrity Commission?
I think I had misinterpreted the question at the time before I made the submission with respect to the particular areas that was needed. So that's why I'm here. So if you all wish for written, to write it or for us to appear again, it will be no problem. Yeah, I can provide that written for you.
Thank you very much.
Okay?
There?
If I could just get some clarity around, well, back to the first one, the drafting of the whistleblower protection legislation. And that same 500,000, well, when asked how are the funds to be utilized, it was for putting together structures and systems in place. But if you haven't had the consultations, you haven't had the discussion, so you're not sure exactly what you're putting in place, then how was the number arrived at? I mean, what was that number based on?
Well, that number was was put against the IC development program. It was not a request from the Integrity Commission. That discussions were held between AG and Ministry of Planning without the information sent to Integrity Commission. We were not aware.
Okay, yeah, I accept that. But do you envision that you would need additional resources then to be able to act as a designated authority under the new act? I mean, and how much additional staff and whatnot do you envision you would need? And would you have adequate space in your current location to house this additional staff?
No, we didn't have the current space. Presently, we had a consultancy with respect to reorganizing the Integrity Commission and restructuring. And that report will be sent to public administration for PMCD's consideration by the end of the week. We're looking at review of the structure of the Integrity Commission. So we will need more space, yes, because we presently house on level 14, that's one floor.
All right, so in terms of that revised structure that you're submitting to PMCD next week, would you have contemplated then a unit to deal with the whistleblower legislation? Or
No, we didn't have the time. We will have to take that in that is taken under advisement, because with this structure, we are going to inform PMCD about this new remit where to be considered, because too, we have to improve also with respect to our project unit, assign a project unit, request for a project unit also, which was not one of the recommendations in the consultancy report. When the consultants came in to work with IC, this wasn't part of consideration. This was something that is new.
Well, in terms of occupying PMCD's time, I'm wondering if it's, since you are aware that whatever you are sending right now, you would still need to go and have it reviewed and have additional units put on. I'm wondering if there's any merit in submitting that to PMCD at this time, knowing that it is not a final decision.
No, it's not a final decision.
Member Ramkisoon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In relation to the oversight mechanisms in place at the Integrity Commission, I saw in your submission you spoke of a performance management system, and there exists an organization of such. I would like for you to share with the committee the function of this performance management system, as in the submission it looks like it varies from monitoring and evaluation. If you could just share some insight on that, please.
Yeah, sure. I will let my HR person.
Hi, good afternoon. The performance management system that we currently work with, it has to do with based on the guidance from the CPO's office with respect to contract employees. So that is the system we work based on. It's a performance appraisal system with respect to work, not organizational. So that is the system that I think what was mentioned in the submission to you.
Thank you for that clarification. So now that this is not the right spot for it, what are the oversight mechanisms in place at the Integrity Commission?
Well, we have we follow the financial regulations and the exchequer. We also have the audit department out of the President's House that provides oversight at the Integrity Commission.
Is these two departments able to track the value for money, accountability, and transparency? Under what policies and guidelines are they operating under?
Well, with respect to audit, there is a bit of difficulty in the sense that there is no internal auditor attached at the IC. There is no position of internal auditor, and the level of auditing which is shared with the President's House, is that of auditing assistant, which is the highest position. Therefore, that's why in the new structure, in the new request, it was recommended that the Integrity Commission has its own audit unit, which will be housed by an experienced auditor within the department.
Sorry, I apologize. Are there any other internal policies that you all utilize at the Integrity Commission?
Yes, we have different policies, such as employment policies, different employment policies. We have also, with respect to transition policies, to name a few.
Would you like to share some light on the Integrity in Public Life Act that you have mentioned in your submission?
Let my legal officer. What area of the Integrity in Public Life Act do you like to share, may I ask?
That is in relation to number 11, where there's internal policies and procedures reviewed and revised to reflect current practice. And it was referred to there were amendments to the Integrity in Public Life Act, but I couldn't only understand the answer, so that's why I'm asking.
Yes, as I stated earlier, there was a bit of course, so I'll make submissions. I stated to Senator Mark that I will make further submissions in writing. Yeah, as much as possible.
Registrar, if you could just assist me, in terms of explaining this 500,000 allocation on the drafting of whistleblowing protection legislation, I understood you to say that this was almost like a gift given to the Integrity Commission, in that it didn't ask for it.
Exactly.
You said it was
Sure.
something determined by the Attorney General.
Yes.
And the Ministry of Finance. I'll take that. This is
Plan.
Ministry of Planning. Thank you.
Finance.
All right. Finance or planning?
Well, finance.
Finance. That's what I heard. Thank you.
Normally, it goes down, AG will send it to Planning Department, PPRD Division, and then Finance will allocate the monies.
Okay.
That's what you
Now,
got.
in terms of the reform of the Integrity Commission and the drafting of that legislation, was this $500,000 visited upon you in the same way?
That too was a gift.
Because I really wanted to ask the sort of authority for drafting to be done by or within the Integrity Commission. And I would think then, therefore, based on how this came by, that was the basis of your authority. You don't have any authority in statute or otherwise to do drafting?
No, no authority.
Okay, thank you. Member Mark.
Is it a normal practice? Because one would imagine that we have the development program, and one would imagine that any organization, any ministry, statutory authority, independent body like the Integrity Commission would submit to the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Planning and development projects. Is it a normal practice or habit of any administration to offer gifts, as you would put it, where you have not...
As chair put it, sir.
No, when I say gift, I'm not saying it in any kind of negative sense, because you are the Integrity Commission. So I'm not doing that. But what I find very strange through the chair is that you can just be imposed with a sum of monies without your requesting it. And I'm just asking you if you could share with this body whether this is an unusual development or is it a normal practice that you have experienced over the years where you have not requested an allocation, but you are given an allocation. And in this instance, I am literally shocked to hear that you didn't ask for whistleblower allocation, but you were given. And then you have just given to the chair another instance where the reform of the commission, you didn't ask for an allocation, and yet still you were given an allocation of 500,000. Now, could you explain to this PAAC, is this a normal practice? Is this a normal way the Integrity Commission receives monies or allocation from the Ministry of Planning and Development and the Ministry of Finance? That is what I'm trying to get clear in my mind.
I can't say that, sir. I'm not sure. As you're aware, I recently attached to the Integrity Commission. I can't say. I'll have to do research, but I can't say.
Member Bash?
Good afternoon. My question really deals with the department's role in preventing, detecting, and investigating fraud. Given that the unit is not functional at this time, how does the Commission detect and investigate fraud in its projects?
I'll have my Director of Investigation. Projects, also. Well, we don't have any projects per se at the moment.
But in the past, how was it detected?
Can I have a written submission, because I was not at the department. I only joined the department in February 19th.
Registrar, certainly, and any other questions we'd ask you to give us a written submission.
Sure, I'll be grateful.
All written submissions must be in by Monday coming.
Sure.
And just so that I can be abundantly clear, under these two projects, no releases were given and no money was spent?
Yes, ma'am, nothing was spent.
It's been released?
No, ma'am.
Thank you very much. So, full team for coming to assist us in this conversation. Thank you for your cooperation and for really working beyond hours, but that's what I guess duty calls at times for. We would be sending the further questions that we have, and of course you know those that you have given the undertakings to answer by Monday, and we look forward for those submissions that may assist us in doing our report. So I thank you all very much, Ms. Alexander, Mr. Ramsey, Mr. Frederick, Ms. George, and of course my site is limited going to the back there. I know there's a Ms. Young, but thank you all.
Thank you so much, Chair.